yes, if you are a critic, and you are, and this is okay. This goes to the whole idea of deterministic and dramatistic screens. Bert talked about how each of us have screens that filter our reality of the world around us. So there can be multiple dramas at one time. So in other words, you have your deterministic screen that leads you to perceive a particular communication event to be a certain way. And the filters that you have are things like your past experience, the way you were raised, people that influenced your life and your thinking, your political perspective, your religious perspective. All these things serve as filters to your experience. And so he calls those deterministic screens because the idea is that to a certain extent we're limited by our filters, because those are always going to be present for each of us when we're communicating. Okay? Mm-hmm. So then he talks about dramatistic screens, which is where he says, okay, yes, we're limited. We always are going to have filters all our lives. Now, those filters can change. So, for example, the filters you had as a high school student and the filters you had as a college student are probably different. They change, right? Some of them do. Some of them don't. Right. Some you take with you for all your life. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that you always are going to have those filters. So it's deterministic in that we can't ever escape our the idea of having filters, right? Okay, or screens, as he calls them. Mm-hmm. But if we decide, okay, I'm going to study this particular communication act from a different perspective or a different screen, not somebody else's. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to think about when, like, if you were having breakfast. Did you have breakfast with anybody today?
No.
Okay.
My cats.
Okay. Okay. But let's say you had a friend, mm-hmm. Or a roommate. Okay. So you could decide, I want to understand what their drama was for this same event. Mm-hmm. So then if you start looking at, okay, from their perspective, who are the agents? Well, the agents might be the same, themselves and yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, the act, we're having breakfast, but also then we start getting into purpose and why are we doing this and how are we doing that? Their drama may look different than yours, probably will, right? Okay? And so if you have, for example, two people in an argument and you were to listen to the way they use symbols to recreate that particular event through dramatism or the pentad, mm-hmm. if you were to do that, then you would begin to understand as a critic, you'd be able to say, okay, well, then there's multiple views of this, multiple ways of knowing this mm-hmm. situation. And it can help you understand their motives and the other person's motives, how they see things, right? How they experience things. So he calls that dramatistic, meaning dramatistic screens, in that every time we allow ourselves to go there and try to experience the multiple dramas, it expands our own deterministic screens. It allows us to be more complex, fully realized human beings because we're not just limited by our own screens, right? So that's how they can be helpful. So not just to a professor, they can be helpful to all of us as students of learning, sure. as we go through life, as we have interpersonal relationships, business relationships, whatever that may be. Right. It can help us navigate those things in a more complex and fully realized way.